The would-be suicide's problem is usually not one of suppressed rage or anger. It is instead the feeling that there is no room in his or her private life for further development, expression, or accomplishment, or that those very attributes are meaningless. The will to live has been subverted by his or her beliefs and attitudes. People with life-threatening diseases also often feel that further growth, development, or expansion are highly difficult, if not impossible, to achieve at a certain point in their lives. Often there are complicated family relationships that the person does not know how to handle. To numbers of such individuals, crisis points come and are conquered. Somehow the person learns to circumnavigate the unpleasant situation, or the conditions change because of other people involved. And presto, the disease itself vanishes. In all cases, however, the need for value fulfillment, expression, and creativity are so important to life that when these are threatened, life itself is at least momentarily weakened. Innately, each person does realize that there is life after death. And in some instances, such people realize that it is indeed time to move to another level of reality, to die and set out again with another brand new world. Often seriously ill people quite clearly recognize such feelings, but they have been taught not to speak of them. The desire to die is considered cowardly, even evil, by some religions. And yet behind that desire lies all of the vitality of the will to life, which may already be seeking for new avenues of expression and meaning. There are those who come down with one serious disease, say heart trouble, are cured through a heart transplant operation or other medical procedure, only to fall prey to another seemingly unrelated disease such as cancer. It would relieve the minds of families and friends, however, if they understood that the individual involved did not fall prey to the disease, and that he or she was not a victim in usual terms. This does not mean that anyone consciously decides to get such and such a disease, but it does mean that some people instinctively realize that their own individual development and fulfillment does now demand another new framework of existence. Much loneliness results when people who know they are going to die feel unable to communicate with loved ones for fear of hurting their feelings. Still, other kinds of individuals will live long, productive lives, even while their physical mobility or health is most severely impaired. They will still feel that they had work to do, or that they were needed, but the main thrusts of their being still reside in the physical universe. Each person's purposes are so unique and individualistic that it is quite improper to try to make any judgments in such matters. There is also the overall picture, for each family member plays a certain part in the reality of every other member. A man might die very shortly after his wife's death, for example. Regardless of the circumstances, no one should judge such cases, for regardless of the way such a man might die, it would be because the thrust and intent and purpose of his life was no longer in physical reality. Many cancer patients have martyr-like characteristics, often putting up with undesirable situations or conditions for years. They feel powerless, unable to change, yet unwilling to stay in the same position. The most important point is to arouse such a person's beliefs in his or her strength and power. In many instances, these persons symbolically shrug their shoulders, saying, "What will happen, but they do not physically struggle against their situation. It is also vital that these patients are not overly medicated, for oftentimes the side effects of some cancer-eradicating drugs are dangerous in themselves. There has been some success with people who imagine that the cancer is instead some hated enemy or monster or foe, which is then banished through mental mock battles over a period of time. While the technique does have its advantages, it also pits one portion of the self against the other. It is much better to imagine, say, the cancer cells being neutralized by some imaginary wand. Doctors might suggest that a patient relax, and then ask himself or herself what kind of inner fantasy would best serve the healing process. Instant images may come to mind at once, but if success is not achieved immediately, have the patient try again, for in almost all cases some inner pictures will be perceived. Behind the entire problem, however, is the fear of using one's full power or energy. Cancer patients most usually feel an inner impatience as they sense their own need for future expansion and development, only to feel it thwarted. The fear that blocks that energy can indeed be dissipated if new beliefs are inserted for old ones. So again, we return to those emotional attitudes and ideas that automatically promote health and healing. Each individual is a good person, an individualized portion of universal energy itself. Each person is meant to express his or her own characteristics and abilities. Life means energy, power, and expression. Those beliefs, if taught early enough, would form the most effective system of preventative medicine ever known. Again, we cannot generalize overmuch, but many persons know quite well that they are not sure whether they want to live or die. The overabundance of cancer cells represents nevertheless the need for expression and expansion, the only arena left open, or so it would seem. Such a person must also contend with society's unfortunate ideas about the disease in general, so that many cancer patients end up isolated or alone. As in almost all cases of disease, however, if it were possible to have a kind of thought transplant operation, the disease would quickly vanish. Even in the most dire of instances, some patients suddenly fall in love, or something in their home environment changes, and the person also seems to change overnight, while again the disease is gone. Healing can involve help on many levels, of course. The world of normal communication I call Framework 1, while Framework 2 represents that inner world, in which indeed all time is simultaneous, and actions that might take years in normal time can happen in the blinking of an eyelid in Framework 2. Briefly, Framework 1 deals with all the events of which you are normally conscious. Framework 2 involves all of those spontaneous processes that go on beneath your conscious attention. When you are very young, your beliefs are quite clear. That is, your conscious and unconscious leanings and expectations are harmonious. As you grow older, however, and begin to accumulate negative beliefs, then your conscious and unconscious beliefs may be quite different. Consciously, you might want to express certain abilities, while unconsciously, you are afraid of doing so. The unconscious beliefs are not really unconscious, however. You are simply not as aware of them as you are of normally conscious ones. Negative beliefs can block the passageways between Framework 1 and Framework 2. It is an excellent idea for those in any kind of difficulty to do the following simple exercise. Simple exercise 1. Relax yourself as much as possible. Get comfortable in a chair or on a bed. Tell yourself mentally that you are an excellent person and that you want to reprogram yourself, getting rid of any ideas that contradict that particular statement. Next, gently remind yourself again, I am an excellent person, adding, it is good and safe for me to express my own abilities, for in doing so I express the energy of the universe itself. Different phrases with the same meaning may come into your own mind. If so, substitute them for the ones I have given. There are endless exercises that can be used to advantage, but here I will only mention a few that appear most beneficial. Simple exercise 2. For another exercise then, relax yourself as much as possible once more. If you have some disease, imagine it as particles of dirt. Tell yourself that you can see inside your body. You may see streets or boulevards instead of muscles and bones, but go along with the image or images that appear. You might see streets lined with dirt or garbage, for example. Then mentally see yourself sweeping the debris away. Order trucks to come and carry the garbage to a trash heap, where you may see it burn and disappear in smoke. Instead of the drama I just outlined, you may instead see invading armies, attacking home troops. In such a case, see the invaders being driven off. The pictures you see will follow your own unique leanings and characteristics. The unconscious levels of the self are only unconscious from your own viewpoint. They are quite conscious in actuality, and because they do deal with the spontaneous processes of the body, they are also completely familiar with your own state of health and well-being. These portions can also be communicated with. Once again, relax yourself as much as possible. Sit comfortably in a chair or lie on a bed. A chair is probably preferable, since it is easy to fall off to sleep if you are lying down. You can refer to these portions of the self altogether as the helper, the teacher, or whatever title suits you best. Simply make a straightforward request, asking that some picture or image be presented in your inner mind that will serve as representative of those portions of your own inner reality. So do not be surprised, for you may see a person, an animal, an insect, or a landscape, but trust whatever image you do receive. If it seems to be that of a person, or angel, or animal, then ask it to speak to you, and to tell you how best to rid yourself of your disease or problem. If the image of a landscape appears instead, then ask for a series of such images that will again somehow point the way toward recovery or toward the resolution of the problem. Then follow through with whatever reply you receive. In all such cases, you are opening the doors of Framework 2, clearing your channels of communication. Since your physical body itself is composed of the very energy that drives the universe, then there is nothing about you which that energy is unaware of. Simply repeating these ideas to yourself can result in release of tension and an acceleration of the healing process. These exercises may suggest others of your own. If so, follow through on them. But to one extent or another, each viewer should benefit from some of them.